It's great to meet you, Christopher. Thank you for taking a minute out. I really enjoy your story and what you're doing as a coach and a productivity expert. So thank you. And I want to begin our journey here into your life by asking you about something that I'm sure we're all getting fatigued with, which is COVID. But it was such a big moment for all of us. It shifted and changed things in various ways. How did you survive that time period, and how did it end up changing the way that you live your life now?
Well, actually, I was very fortunate and very lucky to actually be in a place where COVID hit last. So there weren't very many repercussions actually on my end. I was actually in Central America at the time, and but the way that it did impact me, so personally it didn't impact me, but from a business perspective, it did. There were lots of people that it sort of fell off, right? So in my business specifically, a lot of people were starting to kind of stop and slow down, and they kind of got into this phase of, why does it matter anymore? So a lot of it was mindset during that time. Um, but in terms of after, it actually helped people to kind of figure out what was important again. And even myself, even though I didn't really suffer any terrible consequences of it because we caught the tail end where we were. Again, it changed my life in the aspect of just being able to appreciate life more and just know that any given moment, I mean, we all know, right? We all know that at any given moment we can just have it taken away, as it came from nothing, so it shall return to nothing, sort of deal, right? So it just gives that appreciation, right?
So, you've had 20 plus years of experience in your field, and I'm curious if we boil it down to the heart and soul of what you do. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students at Career Day, and one of the curious little kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" What's your answer?
For a third grade kid, for a third grade kid, I would say I help you move forward when you can't move forward.
What did you want to be in the third grade?
Oh man, this is a good one. In the third grade, I mean, I flip flop back and forth a lot. I mean, I've always wanted to help people, so I originally wanted to be an Air Force pilot, but had that shot down because of the eyes, right?
Yeah.
Um, so they pretty harsh about that actually. It wasn't the third grade; it was the sixth grade. So then I want to be like a police officer. Long story short, I got a true view of the places I was looking to apply to, and decided not to. And after that, I thought I might go into medicine, but figured out that I don't really like the sight of insides being on the outside,
Yeah.
so it wasn't for me.
So take me back to your childhood, where you were born and raised, and what were some of these foundational elements that were planted into you that made you become a coach, made you become a productivity expert, and to help people get unstuck and find their dream? How did this happen?
Well, really, I came by it honestly. My mother was a psychiatric nurse. My father was a paramedic. They were always helping other people. They always wanted to help out as much as they could. So I got that from them really. And how I kind of settled on procrastination and productivity is that I'm a master procrastinator. I mean, but I never had any consequences to it really. So while I've always sort of been assisting people with productivity and moving forward and mindset and things, no matter where I was, what it really did to me, I focused on procrastination because in the last 2 years of high school, I we had to do 12 art projects in it was 2 years, right? But guess who decided to do it the Sunday before it was due? This guy. So I was in the garage all night, and I was sweating buckets. I got out there, but luckily, the person who came to kind of really look at it was he was from a different district. Keep things fair. And I stumbled upon pathetic art, and I sort of glided through that, and I actually got a good grade. Like I was totally expecting to fail, but I actually managed to somehow turn it around and just enough to make something up that sounded good enough to pass. But I actually got a better grade than than this guy that they spent all this extra money on. He went to this very famous stained glass art person. He spent 2 years working his butt off, and he got a lower grade than I did.
Wow.
Um, and that I think was the pinnacle of the start to sort of the downfall because I got rewarded for procrastinating, right?
Yeah.
So, obviously there's no consequences. This continued and it continued until a point where it just couldn't, right? So, fast forward to the not so happy story. The procrastination, sort of robbed me of my final moments I could have had with my mother. It was uncomfortable for me to go to the nursing home to go see her, so I was always putting it off. I was always busy doing something that I deemed more important, right? But it was really just me avoiding discomfort. And so I finally put it on the calendar for the Monday, and she passed away the Sunday night before, actually Sunday morning around 2 in the morning or something like that. And it just hit me. That was kind of the first time I'd had like a consequence from it, right? And so it really dawned on me that this is something that a lot of people have an issue with, and it's sort of insidious in a way because you don't always know that it's going to be bad because again we don't have a lot of consequences, right? And what's bad is that just reinforces the habit. So I really like to work with people, specifically the dreamer category. I can get into those categories if you want, but the dreamer category because they really can't move forward and do what they want to do because they're being held back either because they're overwhelmed or they feel like they're going to be judged or they're not good enough to get out there.
So, talk to me a little bit about heroes, inspirations. Who has really ultimately been a help and that inspiration for you?
In terms of moving forward, I really like some of the greats, some of the ones that have really helped. Michael Singer, Eckhart Tolle. Um, but I think some of my greatest inspirations from real examples, I really looked up to my older brother, because he was always there helping others, very selfless, and he was the kind of just no nonsense guy where like he literally was like, oh well, crap happens, if you're going through hell, just keep going, right?
Yeah.
So he was one of my biggest inspirations. Yeah.
So, if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you could probably benefit from professionally and even personally, someone you're fascinated with, spend some time with them, who would that be?
Well, honestly, this is going to sound a little bit weird, but I honestly kind of want to sit down with Bukele,
Yeah.
um, just because I just want to get inside his head, like what he's doing. He's building this city in the middle of El Salvador, Bitcoin City, right? So I just want to sit down and see what his like ideology is behind that because it's fascinating because he's one of the youngest leaders and he's trying to move forward and he's working with Elon Musk and he's doing all these other things. So I just find it fascinating what he's trying to do, and I'd want to dig more into that and just see his thought processes on that, see where he's going with it.
So, speaking of digging into it, I want to know for you, what is it for you every day that helps you get up to give all of to give of yourself? You really have to give a lot of yourself to help others find their way, but you also have to hold back because you need to grow and evolve as a human being. What is that collective gas in your tank every day you wake up?
Well, this is what a lot of people don't realize is that when you help others, you also help yourself. So as I'm going through helping other people, sometimes you have those aha moments yourself. You're sitting there and you hear something come out of your mouth when you're talking to somebody, and then you say, "Oh, okay, that applies to me too." So what really gets me out of the bed in the morning is those results, right? For others, because just making that impact. And I'm not talking about adding zeros to bank accounts because I've done a lot of that too. But to me, that doesn't really get me going because it's something imaginary, right? But something tangible, like when I was coaching this mother-daughter team, I started coaching the mother for her business. The daughter wanted to get into the business, but she couldn't drive. She didn't want to take her driver's test, right? So being able to coach her through that was and being able to get her to get her license and be able to join her mother doing it in the family business. I mean, I think that those kinds of scenarios where somebody can grow personally, where it impacts their entire like aspects of their entire life, I think that those are the moments that actually keep me going.
So when you decided to be a coach and you decided this was going to be your life, take me back to the first client where you saw that twinkle in their eyes that confirmed for you that you made the right choice. This was your path. This is what you should do with your life.
Well, the very first client, and when I knew that was there was this client I had actually. She was in Lebanon, and she was up for a an internship to an HR company, and she was really feeling a lot of that imposter syndrome, and she was feeling a lot of pressure, and she was worried that she wouldn't be able to hack it, and she didn't. She was worried about that kind of responsibility. So when I was able to help her, get over those limiting beliefs, and she took the internship, and actually she messaged me. I think it was about a month ago, thanking me again because she moved on to have a she moved on to a full time position with that company, and she was doing great, and that I think that really cemented it for me.
So speaking of being young and youth, let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you that was in that procrastination mode, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've gained along the way. What advice would you give that young version of you? And would they listen?
Hmm. That young version of me definitely wouldn't listen because I'll be honest with you, I got advice every step of the way and I ignored it. Um, I got advice from my older brother, from my parents, mentors, even different therapists and different people along the way, right? And at that point, I just sort of like, I was doing my own thing. I wouldn't listen. But if I could say anything, I'd say, dude, just listen. Just listen, and if you're not going to take that advice, at least listen to it. Because I didn't even retain it
Yeah.
until I actually needed it after. And the other part would just be to just do it. You know, whatever you're making up in your head is 10 times worse than whatever the reality is, because our brains are very good at that. So just do it, because it's never as bad as you think it's going to be.
So what is the best advice that you finally took that's resonated, that's been the best advice you've ever had?
The best advice I ever had. The best advice I ever had. Um, Honestly, just say no. And I don't mean drugs. I know where you're going with that. I know you mean
Right.
drugs. No, it's not just drugs. It's what I mean by that is boundaries. Um, the biggest piece of advice I ever got, and I was kind of never really able to get that until much later than I should have, is have those boundaries. Um, those personal boundaries are so important because you can't give 100% to 100% of people, and at the end, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? I know it's a cliche, but you can't. And by having those boundaries, I mean, yes, they're uncomfortable at first, and yeah, people may go away, but um, if somebody goes away or you lose a job because of a boundary that's for your personal and emotional health, then it's worth it, because you need those boundaries in order to be whole yourself, in order to help other people, if that's really what you want to do.
So of everything that you've done and evolved into and achieved in your life, what are you the proudest of?
What am I the proudest of? I think that um, actually, my daughter. Because I was the kind of person that I never really felt like I'd be a good dad or anything, right? Not that I'm dad of the year right now, but my proudest moment, definitely her, seeing her grow up, seeing her be that individual person, and kind of being able to help her through, and help her see through to be independent. That I think was, yeah, that's definitely my proudest moment. Yeah.
So everyone out there has a perception of you. There's all these people and pockets of people in your life, family, friends, clients, everyone that you know, but you run the show. What's
Yep.
your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who am I? Well, I'm the person that gives to a fault. Again, talking boundaries. I'm the person who definitely is sometimes too much of a rescuer. Sometimes I can be a little too tenacious. But it always comes from a good place. So yeah, that's who I am. I'm just the kind of person that wants to see the world be a better place and just leave the world a little better than what I came into it as, right? Which is getting to be a little more difficult given current states of affairs, right? But
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
trying.
Especially in America. So what's the best thing about living in Ontario?
The best thing about living in Ontario. Hmm. Right. So I think the best thing about living in Ontario is just, I guess, the mixture of cultures and people that there are.
Yeah.
Um, having that exposure, I think, is important. Um, just because it helps. Okay, it's supposed to help lead to better understanding. It doesn't always pan out that way, but the more that we can be exposed to other cultures, other ways of thinking, the more that we can start to coexist. If we're kind of in our own pocket all the time, and this was true for me growing up in the 90s, I know. When we're not exposed to other cultures or other beliefs, then we tend to have more friction because we've only known our way. And, it's, how we get to be sometimes our way or the highway because we don't necessarily see another way. When we can see other ways, then we can look at them and say, oh, okay, legitimately, okay, I've viewed this, I've viewed mine. Yeah, no, I still don't like it. But at least you've had that exposure so that you can, have some more understanding so you can at least, coexist.
So if we get off this call and a time machine pulls up to your house, you can go back in time and see one event in human history. It won't affect the ripple of time. You can just see it with your own eyes. What would you love to have seen happen?
Honestly, the Big Bang.
Yeah.
I mean, just going back, I just think that would have been. I mean, I know it rolled out really slow, but if I could see the Big Bang and how all the stars were formed, and if I could get like a fast forward view of that, I think it would be really interesting to see, just how everything expanded out, and I think it'd be really pretty to look at, actually.
Yeah. You might need earplugs, but I think it would all work out.
Well, yeah.
Perhaps. Hey, if anyone wants to hire you, reach out, learn more about what you're doing, any of the good business, where can they go?
Oh, sure. They can always find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Chris Abdey on LinkedIn, and my website is the easiest way to probably get in touch as well. www.procrastinationstation.ca. And there's even a free quiz on there, and there's actually a little button there too. If you just want to chat for 15 minutes, go ahead. Um, I'm open to discuss anything from procrastination to if you just want to have a virtual coffee.
Okay.
Because that's my big thing is you enjoying reaching out and speaking to people and just seeing what's out there.
Absolutely. Speaking of, this has been wonderful, Christopher. Thank you. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Keep radiating the good work out there. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
Thank you. Take care.